Discover 9 incredible minutes that will transform your day into a life-changing experience. Sarah awoke before dawn, the soft hum of the coffee pot blending with the rustle of her children, Jake and Lily, stirring in their rooms. She tiptoed to their doorways, pausing to imprint each sleeping face in her memory. The weight of the day ahead already tightened her chest. Balancing a low-wage diner job and raising 2 bright kids in a small Midwestern town wasn't easy. Yet, every morning, the smell of sizzling bacon and a pot of oatmeal gave her hope. It was a small oasis in their relentless routine. Once the kids were fed and out the door, Sarah slipped on her well-worn apron, the one that had soaked up countless splashes of syrup and coffee over the years. The local diner felt like an extension of her home, with regulars who had become family. Lively conversations and the clattering of dishes filled the air, a symphony of laughter that brought comfort even on the toughest days. But today, the din was tinged with an undercurrent of tension. Whispers filled the diner about her son, Jake. A good kid, honest and full of dreams, was being accused of vandalizing school property. Sarah's heart sank. It spread like wildfire, igniting old prejudices and doubts that the townspeople couldn't suppress. The principal was eager to make an example. "Boys will be boys," he scoffed, twisting the knife deeper, as if Jake's worth could be determined by a single mistake. That a flicker of fear ignited in Sarah's gut. Her son's future was on the line. This was no simple accusation. It was a fix that trapped families like hers in an unfair system that often overlooked the struggles of the working class. She felt the familiar resentment bubbling within her, a fierce determination to fight for her child's dignity, despite the imposing barrier of the institution looming over them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That urge to fight intensified with the return of Tom, her childhood friend, now a successful lawyer from the big city. As he extended offers of help, shadows of pride smothered Sarah's resolve. She couldn't bear the thought of relying on charity, nor the reminder of her struggles in contrast to his success. But the stakes had morphed into something far greater than pride. The annual town fair approached, a beloved celebration that would typically spark joy. But dread gnawed at Sarah's heart. Would this be the moment she stood tall, or would judgment hang heavy in the air? In the midst of spinning rides and laughter, she found her pulse quickening. Standing before the crowd, she faced the town, the whispers and glances weighing on her shoulders. With every ounce of courage she could muster, she spoke up for Jake, pouring out her truth, the injustice her family faced. Just as the crowd began to lean in, hope flickering like a flame, a voice shouted to silence her, another reminder of the unshakable biases that permeated the very streets they walked. Contemplation, mixed with fear, plunged the room into uncertainty. They might be divided on Jake, but in that moment, Sarah stood firm, her heart racing, the outcome unpredictable. Would this community finally see the truth? Would they choose compassion over judgment? Would she lose everything? The stakes climbed higher as she clung to hope, ready to stake it all on one final chance to show the town what family truly meant. The silence hung heavily in the air, almost palpable, as Sarah locked eyes with the crowd. Some faces were familiar, friends from years past, while others were a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Time seemed to freeze, the chatter of the fair fading into an echo as her heart thudded in her chest, amplifying the doubt that threatened to shatter her resolve. "Jake is a good kid. He deserves your trust, not your judgment," she implored, her voice wavering but gaining strength with every word. A murmur rippled through the bystanders. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. This wasn't just about Jake. It was about every family feeling the weight of similar accusations. "Do you remember when we were kids?" she continued, her gaze sweeping over the onlookers. "When mistakes were just that, mistakes." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes as the nostalgia flooded back. "We all slip up. This isn't who he is." But a figure emerged from the crowd, Mrs. Thompson, the principal's loyal ally, eyebrows furrowed in disapproval. He should know better. Sarah. He put graffiti on school property. That's not just a childish prank. With clenched fists, Sarah felt the fire within her escalate. Maybe we should talk about what led to that moment. Maybe we need to see our kids not just as their mistakes, but as human beings learning and growing. Each word sliced through the growing tension like a knife, and for a heartbeat, silence enveloped them again. The air crackled with uncertainty as the townsfolk exchanged glances. Some nodded, while others stubbornly shook their heads. Sarah realized she was standing at a precipice, the townspeople balancing on the edge of acceptance or condemnation. Suddenly, a voice from the back broke through the din. It was Jake's friend, Danny. My dad said our kids need to be kids. They make mistakes. I did something wrong once, and nobody condemned me for it. His courage sparked something within the crowd, a collective realization that echoed in the hearts of the parents, reminding them of their own youthful indiscretions. Sarah seized the moment. Yes, remember, we're not just parents. We're a community. If we tear each other down for mistakes, we'll never build each other up. Hope surged through her like a river breaking through a dam. The atmosphere began to shift, glances turned softer, murmurs of agreement rippling through the crowd. The judgments weren't completely dissolved, but there was a crack in the wall, a little light shining through. Yet, just as Sarah thought change might blossom, she saw Tom frown from the sidelines. Leaning on a booth, he looked apprehensive, caught between friendship and the reality of her plea. What would he say? Would he back her or speak against her? As the crowd's resolve began to soften, Sarah's heart raced again, but this time it was hope and fear wrestling together. The unexpected twist of needing Tom's support on the very stage where they once shared childhood dreams weighed heavily on her. Would he step forward, or would he retreat, leaving her to fight this battle alone? The air buzzed with anticipation as everyone waited to see how the tides would turn. Would the power of community be enough to sway the hearts of those blinded by their own perceptions? The answer felt excruciatingly close, yet still miles away. In that brief eternity, Sarah prepared herself for whatever would come next. The moment of truth loomed, and she was ready, but uncertainty hung in the air like the last note of a song that might just lead to change or defeat. Tom hesitated, his body taut with indecision. He was the anchor Sarah needed, but doubt filled the space between them. The crowd shifted, restless and murmuring, and she could feel their eyes on him waiting, wanting to see what he would do next. Tom, she called out, pleading with her gaze. Please, he straightened, the uncertainty etched on his face almost like a mask. Sarah, it's not that simple, he finally said, the words tumbling out in a rush. What Jake did, it could have serious consequences. He needs to learn. But what about learning through our support? She shot back, her voice starting to resonate with passion again. What if this is the wake-up call he needs? Isn't it worth giving him a chance to grow instead of shutting him out? Tom's expression softened slightly, but his brow remained knit. And what if we let him off the hook? What if there are no consequences? What kind of message does that send? A knot tightened in Sarah's chest. The familiarity of their argument stung. They had always been on the same page, and now it felt like they were miles apart, like two strangers circling each other in the dark. Tom, she started, her heart a hammer against her ribs. When we were kids, who did we go to when we messed up? Our parents? They didn't abandon us. They guided us. This time, the crowd reacted. Murmurs grew louder, the tension shifting in Sarah's favor. Danny whispered something to a friend, and others nodded in agreement, faces lighting up with recognition. Tom rubbed the back of his neck, visibly torn. Sarah pushed ahead, unyielding. I understand you want to protect him, but what about empathy? What about understanding the root of his actions? A flicker of something crossed Tom's eyes. Perhaps it was doubt. Perhaps it was understanding. He looked out at the crowd, at the faces they had grown up with, and hesitated. It's just my brother. I want him to be better. That's exactly it. We all want better for our kids, but we have to let them learn the right way. The air in the market square pulsed with her words, a collective breath held tight. Sarah took a small step toward him, dropping her voice to an urgent whisper. Tom, trust in the community. Trust us to support him through this. You know it's right. The corners of his mouth twitched, as if the weight of the world still rested on his shoulders, but Sarah could see it cracking. There was a round of laughter somewhere in the crowd that seemed to echo in her heart. These were the memories they lived for, the laughter, the mistakes, the growth. She felt the strength flood back into her as she watched her friend grapple with his thoughts. It wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about the town, about finding common ground amidst the chaos. Finally, Tom took a step forward, breathing deeper. Maybe you're right. Maybe he just needs a chance. The crowd moved, a wave of tentative support washing over them. Relief flooded Sarah. She could feel a shift, a change. But just then, a voice boomed from the edge of the crowd. You think that's enough? You think just forgiveness will fix this? All heads turned to where Mrs. Thompson stood, arms crossed, her face set in defiance. The sparks of tension ignited again, and Sarah's heart sank as the air thickened once more. The battle was far from over, and with every exchange, she knew the stakes were rising. Would they allow compassion to prevail, or would judgment take over? As the confrontation loomed, Sarah understood one thing: she was ready to fight for every voice that sonorously echoed the truth. But could she harness the power of that moment, or would fear fracture the fragile thread they were weaving back together? The answers loomed just out of reach, heavy like storm clouds, and the weight of anticipation filled the air. Would the community unite, or would they crumble under the pressure of their own misguided perceptions? The words hung in the air, electric and charged. Mrs. Thompson's defiance sliced through the collective hopes of the crowd, drowning any sense of unity that had begun to form. Sarah could see fear creeping into the eyes of her neighbors. What had been a moment of potential connection had been abruptly disrupted, like a fragile glass about to shatter. "Mrs. Thompson, please," Sarah implored, her voice straining to rise above the swell of doubt that rippled through the audience. "This isn't just about forgiveness. It's about growth. We all make mistakes. Wouldn't you agree?" Mrs. Thompson pushed her chin out defiantly. "Doesn't matter what you think, Sarah. We can't just brush this under the rug. Jake broke the trust within our community. Trust is sacred." Tom looked over at Sarah, desperation in his eyes. "There's some truth there. If everyone just gets a free pass," he trailed off, worry and anger mixing in his voice. "Sacred?" Sarah echoed, stepping closer, her heart racing. "What about the sacred bonds of friendship? What about compassion? Right now, families need to heal. Shutting Jake out won't fix anything, but will only forge deeper divisions." The murmurs came back, louder this time, back and forth like waves crashing against rocks. Danny, emboldened by Sarah's conviction, chimed in. "We're not talking about ignoring what he did. We're talking about giving him support to change. The last thing we need is more isolation." Mrs. Thompson rolled her eyes, the audience divided. Some nodded in agreement with Danny, while others stood firm behind her. Tom remained still, caught somewhere in between. Sarah needed him to make a stand, to reclaim the momentum they had gathered. "Tom, say something," she urged, her fears swelling into a palpable pressure. He glanced back at her, swallowing hard. "It's just hard to let go. I don't want to see Jake become a failure. What if he doesn't change? What if, in this moment of mercy, we missed the opportunity to teach him?" The doubt lingered in the air, thick as fog clinging to the ground. Sarah took a deep breath, pushing back the frustration. What if we're giving up on him before he has had a real chance to prove himself? You know what happens when we give up on people we love? Sometimes they want to come back. But sometimes, with a little faith, they surprise us. Tom shifted, running a hand through his hair, and the crowd fell into an apprehensive silence, hanging on his every word. "Maybe Sarah is right," he finally said, his voice steadying. "Maybe Jake needs to feel our presence now more than ever." But just as those words slipped from his lips, Mrs. Thompson shook her head vehemently. "And if that presence makes it worse? If this kindness leads him to think he can keep doing wrong?" Sarah stepped closer to Tom, adding the urgency she felt. "Then we be there to help him make it right. We can't live in fear of what might happen. There's more power in love than in punishment." Just then, a ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd, people shifting uneasily as some began to reconsider their stance. Was this the moment to choose compassion over harshness, to give voice to understanding in a time when judgment felt easier? Tom didn't look at Mrs. Thompson anymore. His gaze met Sarah's, and she felt the weight of what that look meant. Hope barely glimmered in the corners of her heart, still fragile yet stubborn. But before Tom could speak again, Mrs. Thompson's voice rang out once more, stronger now. "You're setting yourselves up for disappointment, and mark my words, you'll regret it." Chills ran down Sarah's spine at the certainty in her tone. The stakes had suddenly escalated, and the future of their community rested not just on this single moment, but the decisions they made in the ensuing chaos. Sarah's heart raced, uncertainty creeping back into her thoughts. What would it mean to take this leap? Would they all be prepared and willing to face the consequences, whatever they may be? The crowd hushed, their collective breath held in anticipation of Tom's next words. In the weight of the moment, Sarah could feel the fragile thread of understanding stretching taut, fragile, yet unyielding. The choice sat heavy on their shoulders, the future a blur just beyond their reach. What would they choose? Would compassion flourish, or would fear drive a wedge between them that might never heal? As silence engulfed them, the path forward hung precariously in the balance, waiting for one brave soul to illuminate it. In that hush, Sarah realized that the battle was just beginning, and every voice mattered. The weight of the moment hung over them like a storm cloud, crackling with tension. Tom glanced at the faces surrounding him, a mix of worry and uncertainty swirling in their eyes. He could feel his heart pounding, louder than the whispers. Every second felt like a ticking clock, counting down to a decision that would shape their community's fate. Just breathe, he muttered to himself, shaking off his nerves. He wanted to be the one who rallied them, not the voice of fear. What's the worst that could happen? He turned his gaze back to Sarah, her sincerity radiating like sunlight breaking through the clouds, igniting a flicker of courage within him. His mind raced with thoughts of every wrong turn Jake had taken and how, despite it all, he was still a part of their community, deserving of a second chance. I think, Tom started, hesitating as an internal battle waged within him. I think we owe it to Jake to give him a chance to make things right. But that doesn't mean we ignore the hurt he caused. We can hold him accountable and support him. It's not mutually exclusive. The crowd murmured again. Some faces softened, while others remained rigid, clutching their doubts tightly. I say we stand together, Danny shouted, hands raised, trying to draw everyone in. If we don't show him the way back, who will? Isolation has never healed anyone. A ripple of agreement broke through the silence, igniting sparks of understanding among those who had been hesitant. Mrs. Thompson's scowl deepened, her voice cutting through the hopeful energy. And when he fails again, you'll have to look in the eyes of those he hurts next. You think kindness is all it takes? Yes, Sarah countered, determination surging inside her. Kindness allows us to grow stronger together. Every person is capable of change if we create a space for it. Trust and love, let those guide us. The air shifted around them. A change was tangible. People began to nod, some even clapping softly, a small but growing rebellion against fear. Look, I get it, Tom continued, emboldened now. Jake messed up, but so have we all, in one way or another. We have to decide if we want to be a community that tears each other down or lifts each other up. Mrs. Thompson looked crestfallen, the fight slipping from her as she glanced across the sea of faces, now alight with possibility. For a moment, Sarah didn't know if she'd back down, but she saw the cracks forming in her stern facade, the unmistakable stirring of doubt. What you're suggesting isn't just risky, it's dangerous. Mrs. Thompson's voice cracked, revealing her vulnerability beneath the tough exterior. What if he hurts someone again? This isn't just about you or me, it's about the safety of our children. Sarah thought of the children, the weight of that responsibility anchoring her resolve. We can't protect them through fear. We have to teach them about forgiveness, about resilience. To show them that mistakes can lead to better things if we choose to heal instead of hurting. The crowd grew restless, drawn into the magnetism of the moment, hearts swaying like grass in the wind. Then, from the back, a voice called out, "If not us, then who?" The silence shattered as the question hung in the air. Faces turned toward each other, the struggle between fear and hope palpable. Tom felt the shift within him, an awakening as the glimmer of a united front began to take shape. "Let us decide," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Do we want to be the community that forgot how to care, or the one that believes in second chances?" As if summoned by a shared belief, a chorus of voices joined his, growing louder as the crowd echoed their support. It felt electric, the possibility sparking hope into an open flame. Every voice mattered now, Every heartbeat aligned with the realization that change wasn't just necessary, it was possible. But just as the tide of emotions swelled, Mrs. Thompson raised her hand. Her expression transformed into one of reluctant acceptance. All right, let us say we do this. What are the steps? If we're going to extend compassion, we need a plan, because this is about more than just Jake now. A collective breath was held, anticipation weaving through the crowd. They were on the brink of something profound, yet uncertainty still hovered like a shadow. They needed to move forward together. As one. In that moment of clarity, they realized the journey ahead would not just test their commitment to Jacob, but also challenge the very foundation of their belief in humanity. Would they rise together, or would the weight of doubt pull them apart? And just like that, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Would they all find a way to embrace this new path forward? Or would fear still reign supreme in their hearts? The air buzzed with nervous energy, each person feeling the gravity of Mrs. Thompson's words. What started as whispers now transformed into a united murmur, the fear in the hearts of many still palpable, but slowly giving rise to hope. They all understood this was just the beginning of a larger conversation, one that would shape not just Jake's future, but theirs too. "We need a meeting," Tom said, stepping forward with more courage than he thought he had. "We'll gather our community, hear everyone out, and come up with specific actions we can take to support Jake and each other." There was a mix of nodding heads and sighs of apprehension. Sarah felt her heart race. It was daunting. They were stepping into a territory fraught with emotions and unbridled uncertainties. But in that moment, with everyone looking to Tom and her, she was reminded of the power they could wield together. "Maybe we can create a mentorship program," Danny proposed, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling around them. "Pair up with Jake and other individuals who might be on the edge, help guide them back into our community." Some attendees murmured in agreement, but others hesitated, eyes still narrowed with skepticism. "But what if it backfires?" One voice echoed, cutting through the budding optimism. "How do we trust him?" "Trust takes time," Tom replied, addressing the crowd once more. "It's not about giving him the keys to the kingdom right away. It's about creating pathways where we can learn to trust again. If we don't take this step, what are we left with? Only more pain and isolation." The gravity of his words resonated deeply. Although the doubts did not disappear, they seemed to lessen just enough to let the seeds of hope germinate. "Maybe we can include a community council," Sarah suggested. "A group of people who can work together to monitor things as they evolve. That way, everyone can feel safe and supported." "That sounds solid. Let us get a team together who is willing to meet regularly and address any issues that come up," Tom said, his heart lifting at the shift. Their enthusiasm began to spread. Little by little, people started brainstorming, offering ideas that ebbed and flowed like waves against the shore. What about workshops focusing on empathy and understanding? Or outreach programs to share stories of redemption? Then, Mrs. Thompson stood, a hesitant yet thoughtful expression crossing her features. "I've been afraid for a long time, but what you're suggesting could help us heal. It's not just about Jake anymore. It's about all of us. Maybe I should be part of this council too." Gasps of surprise echoed, but they quickly transitioned to soft applause. The warmth of her acceptance jarred them all, mingling with the budding excitement. If she could take that leap, maybe others could too. As plans solidified, people exchanged smiles, exchanging ideas and hopes like precious gifts. Together, they began to carve a vision of what a compassionate community could look like. Could they indeed be a beacon of hope? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the meeting in hues of gold and amber, a feeling settled among them. They were moving forward, not only for Jake, but for themselves. The hardest part wasn't over. They still had to confront the skeptical minds in their community, but now they had a foundation to build on. "Let us meet again next week," Tom concluded, his voice rising over the murmured excitement. "And let us bring our neighbors. We need everyone on board to make this work." Everyone nodded in agreement, excitement turning into momentum. But as they began to disperse, Sarah noticed Mrs. Thompson, her thoughtful expression still lingering, as if she were wrestling with her own doubts about joining this new venture. Would she fully embrace this new path forward, or would her fears pull her back into the shadows? The weight of that question wrapped around Sarah's heart, whispering the truth. Their journey was just beginning. The following week came faster than anyone expected. The air felt electric as the community gathered for their second meeting. People filed into the old town hall, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. Sarah stood at the entrance, greeting familiar faces as they arrived. She could sense the change in energy, a subtle shift from fear to determination. Tom stood in front of the gathered crowd, a hopeful smile on his face. As he surveyed the room, he noticed an array of expressions. Some were concerned, others eager, and a few still youthful in their skepticism. But beneath it all was a shared longing for connection, to break past the barriers that had kept them apart for so long. "Thanks for coming, everyone," he began, his voice steady. "This is just the beginning. As we get started, let us focus on what really matters. Our community, our shared stories, and how we can support each other." A ripple of understanding passed through the crowd. Stories, after all, were the foundation of their bonds. Danny, with a notebook in hand, jumped in. "We talked about mentorship last time. I think we should start identifying volunteers who are willing to guide others like Jake. It doesn't have to be a big commitment. Just a coffee chat now and then." Murmurs of agreement peppered the air, but doubts soon rose again. "What if Jake isn't ready?" Someone called out. "What if he can't be helped?" The room fell silent. Sarah felt her heart race again. Doubt lingered like a shadow. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. What if he just needs someone to believe in him? Her voice was softer, yet it carried through the quiet. What if we all need that? We have to break the cycle. If we don't try, isn't that the same as giving up? A quiet murmur of agreement followed. Mrs. Thompson's response, however, was what caught everyone's attention. She stood slowly, weighing each word. "I've been thinking a lot since last week," she began, her voice shaky but firm. "I've watched Jake grow up. I've let my fear dictate how I feel about him. But fear isn't a path forward." Gasps spread through the room as people shifted uncomfortably, but her next words brought them back into focus. "I want to help. I want to be part of something bigger. If we can all step outside our fears for just a moment, perhaps we can spark real change." The courage in her voice was contagious. The audience erupted into a chorus of support. "I'll help start the mentorship program," another neighbor chimed in. "I'll support Jake. I want to help." Tom's heart swelled with pride. "This is what it's about," he said, his face illuminated with hope. "We're creating a safe space. Together." The night went on, filled with vibrant ideas, cultural exchange nights, community art projects, potluck dinners to build trust. Sarah's cheeks ached from smiling as she absorbed every suggestion. But amidst the joy, she could feel the undercurrent of unresolved tension. The doubts didn't disappear, and some people still wore guarded expressions. Questions loomed heavy. As they wrapped up the meeting, Sarah pulled Mrs. Thompson aside. "You really believe we're going to make a difference?" "I want to," she replied, her eyes glistening. "But it's not easy. I worry. Can we really take this on?" As a wave of uncertainty passed, Sarah felt a chill. Could they rise above their past enough to embrace this uncharted path? Inside, she knew that as brave as they were in these united moments, vulnerability still loomed large as they headed into a future filled with unknowns. The next meeting, they decided, would be crucial. It would include those who had chosen not to attend, urging them to join in this journey of healing and connection. Would the invite extend to Jake himself? The thought left her heart fluttering with both nervousness and a glimmer of hope. Could they all work toward embracing the past while building a new future? And as they prepared for the journey ahead, one question lingered in Sarah's mind. Would this collective courage be enough to draw Jake back into the fold, or would old wounds stifle their efforts? Before they truly began, the days crawled by since the last meeting, stretching like a taut string, as anticipation mixed with anxiety in Sarah's chest. She spent sleepless nights planning what to say, how to frame their invitation to Jake. Would he even consider coming? As the next meeting approached, she could see the excitement and dread painted across the faces of the townspeople. They rallied behind a goal, but the shadows of their fears still loomed like storm clouds above them. Finally, the day arrived. The town hall was bustling, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and homemade pastries. Tom stood at the front again, trying to mask the tension he felt brewing just beneath the surface. This time, they'd be addressing Jake's potential involvement, which hung heavily in the air. "Welcome back, everyone," he greeted, a a smile betraying his worry. Tonight is important. We're here to take another step forward together. Fingers fidgeted, eyes darted between the group, those who believed and those who still held on to doubts. Sarah glanced around the room, noticing familiar faces, but also the absence of Jake S. Her heart sank at the thought of him refusing their outreach. A chill ran up her spine. Could they really help him? As discussions sparked over what they could say to Jake, Sarah leaned in close to Danny, who was busy writing down ideas. What if we make him feel welcomed? What if we showcase what we've accomplished as a community? Show him we're different? Danny's eyes lit up. Yes. What if we have a showcase night, bring everyone together to share the progress we've made? It could be an open invite for Jake. Tom nodded, excitement building in his posture. That's brilliant. We'll highlight art, music, and food from each other's cultures. Show that we're invested in this community, for him and for us. But just as hope sparked, a doubt emerged from the back of the room. And if he doesn't come? What if he's not ready? A voice spoke up from the crowd, an older man, who had known Jake since childhood. The room fell silent again, the weight of that question pressing hard. Sarah looked toward Mrs. Thompson, who had risen from her seat again, her face carrying the lines of worry. There will always be doubts, she began, but we can't let fear limit us anymore. We have to invite him with open hearts and clear intentions. If he doesn't want to come, that's not a failure on our part. Warm nods filled the room as the crowd stewed in their thoughts, digging through the sea of emotions. Sarah knew they needed to be patient. This wouldn't be a straightforward journey. As they began to plan the showcase, the energy shifted. The air turned electric once again. This was a tangible step toward creating community, a sign for Jake that he wasn't alone. Everyone dove into their tasks. Laughter echoed alongside serious discussions. Music commitments were made, and traditions celebrated. Yet, amid all the excitement, Sarah's mind wandered. What if they did everything right, but still lost Jake? Could their support penetrate through the barriers built from years of solitude? As the meeting wrapped up, the atmosphere felt different. Hope mingled with a thread of anxiety, binding them together as they faced uncertainty collectively. Let us keep this momentum going, Tom said, a renewed spark igniting his words. And let us make sure we reach out to Jake as well. Every voice matters. As everyone dispersed, Sarah couldn't shake the thought of Jake, how he might react, or if he would even find the courage to come. Just then, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. Are you really inviting me? It read. Her heart thundered in her chest. Would it be the start of a new chapter for all of them? Would Jake open the door to a future filled with possibility, or was this just the first sign of another closed door? The message hovered in front of Sarah, each word echoing in her mind. Are you really inviting me? She couldn't believe it was from Jake. Her fingers trembled as she hovered over the keyboard, trying to find just the right words. Yes, Jake. We are so excited to have you join us. It's going to be special, she finally typed, her heart racing. After sending the message, Sarah tried to focus on the conversation around her, but her mind was racing through endless possibilities. What would she say if he came? Would he feel welcome? Would he even recognize the efforts they were making to bring him back into the fold? Across the room, Danny was discussing logistics with some of the others. Everyone's pulling together for this. We have musicians, artists, and a ton of food lined up. We want it to feel like a celebration, not just a meeting. His enthusiasm was infectious, but Sarah couldn't shake the worry coiling in her stomach. The showcase was scheduled for next week. Would there be enough time to prepare? Would Jake feel the warmth she imagined emanating from the community? As night fell, Sarah stepped outside for some fresh air. The breeze carried the faint sounds of laughter and clinking dishes from town hall. Underneath the stars, her thoughts turned back to Jake. The darkness seemed to thicken with uncertainty, and she wondered if he would even respond to her message. Just then, her phone chimed again. Jake's reply had come through. I don't know, Sarah. I haven't really been a part of the town for a while. I'm not sure I belong there anymore. Her heart sank. Was he really questioning his place? The journey back from isolation was daunting, and she felt the weight of the town's hopes resting heavily on her shoulders. What if they were asking too much of him? Or what if he truly believed he didn't fit in anymore? Determined not to let him slip away, Sarah began typing again. Please, Jake. We'd love to show you how much you mean to us, how much we've changed. You are still a part of our community. Taking a deep breath, she sent the message off. The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she held onto a sliver of hope. Perhaps he needed this just as much as they did. A moment of vulnerability could lead to something transformative for both him and the town. The next few days flew by, filled with frantic preparations for the showcase. The hall was decorated with colorful banners, each telling a story of someone's journey in town. Volunteers worked tirelessly, setting up tables laden with food that represented their diverse backgrounds. Sarah felt a spark of excitement. They weren't just preparing a meeting, but creating an event that whispered warmth, belonging, and acceptance. On the night of the showcase, the town hall sparkled under strings of lights. When the first guests began arriving, Sarah's pulse quickened. She searched the crowd for Jake, her heart pounding with each familiar face that walked in. The laughter and chatter swirled around her, but she remained grounded in that singular hope he would come. That a sudden hush fell over the crowd as Tom stepped on a small stage to welcome everyone. "Tonight is about more than just us," he said, his voice steady. "It's about the bonds we've created and the ones we are trying to rebuild. Tonight, we open our hearts to Jake." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The door swung open. Could it be? Everyone turned to see who entered. Would it be Jake stepping into the warmth they had prepared, or would it be the sound of another missed opportunity? The atmosphere thickened with anticipation as they all waited. As the door creaked open wider, there he stood, Jake. Hesitant but hopeful, his eyes searched the room, landing on Sarah first. Her breath hitched in her throat. The moment felt suspended in time. People turned. Excited whispers mingled with cheers as familiarity spread through the hall. Jake took a cautious step forward, and Sarah's heart swelled with pride. He was brave enough to come. Gathering herself, she stepped off to the side of the stage, standing taller than she ever had before. The overwhelming warmth washed over her as Danny waved enthusiastically. "Jake, welcome home," he shouted, making others join him in a chorus of welcoming cheers. The sound enveloped Jake like a blanket, washing away the weight of self-doubt that had clung to him. As he took another step inside, the insecurities faded, replaced by the spark of belonging. Sarah could feel the atmosphere shift, electricity buzzing with connection. Families around her nodded approvingly, some wiping tears of joy away from their eyes. The embrace of empathy and hope hung thick in the air. It felt like a single heartbeat pulsating through them. Tom continued his speech, outlining the plans for the mentorship program, and spoke of kindness, resilience, and collective power. "Tonight, we welcome not just Jake, but embrace the struggle we've all faced," he emphasized, locking eyes with Sarah. "Let tonight mark a new beginning," she chimed in, fired up. "We're here to show that mistakes are simply steps toward growth." The crowd erupted into supportive applause, and for a moment, Jake stood frozen, overwhelmed yet struck by a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in a long time. "Everyone has a story," Danny said from the front. "Tonight, we'll share our own, honoring each other's paths." The night unfolded beautifully. Families shared their experiences, not just about achievements, but about their own struggles, mistakes, and the unyielding journey toward redemption. Stories flowed like blessings, each one a thread weaving tighter connections among them all. Jake felt the warmth wrap around him, slowly pulling him closer to the center of their community. As it came time for him to speak, fear bubbled at the pit of his stomach. Would they still accept him after everything? Yet, he found the strength he needed. I've made choices I'm not proud of," he began, his voice shaky but growing stronger with every word. "But seeing everyone come together tonight, it makes me feel like I still belong here. You all mean the world to me." His emotions surged, filling the room with honest vulnerability. As a wave of empathy flowed back at him, he realized he was no longer alone. The community rallied, and a wave of shared laughter and stories reverberated through the hall. In the glow of shared moments, Mrs. Thompson was next to stand. "We all stumble and fall, but look at how beautiful it is when we get back up together," she said, her voice filled with vulnerability. "Tonight is proof that love can mend what fear once splintered apart." The crowd erupted again, a roar of unity crashing like waves breaking against a shore. Sarah felt the tears pooling in her eyes, genuine happiness flooding her heart. They were transforming together, everyone connected in a journey of redemption. As the night wound down, Jake stood by Sarah, the two exchanging smiles that radiated strength. I didn't know what I was missing until now, he admitted, the warmth of community with every unspoken word heavy in the air. She nodded. This is just the start, she whispered, her heart full. You'll see we'll keep moving forward. And with that, as the echoes of shared laughter and heartfelt stories lingered behind them, they knew they were building bridges over old wounds, transforming fear into strength. It wasn't just a showcase. It was a new beginning for every soul present, a promise that they were no longer alone. Jake's shoulders relaxed. He finally felt like he could truly breathe again, surrounded by a family reclaiming what it meant to stand together. And just like that, a new chapter opened in their lives, a story filled with hope, connection, and the undeniable power of community. Now, if you felt inspired by this transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will lift your spirits. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey together. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear from you. Do you know someone who needs a boost? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who can experience this journey with us. This is the moment to show your support and be part of something bigger. Don't wait, not even one more second to share.